Welcome to the Seven Figure CEO podcast, where we talk all things marketing strategies, business systems, personal development insights, and conduct interviews with successful CEOs and entrepreneurs. Learn the exact strategies on how seven-figure CEOs market and scale their companies with your host, Chris Rodriguez. Welcome, everybody, to the Seven Figure CEO podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Mark Preader of Enterprise Martial Arts. He's a child development specialist and owner of a very successful martial arts school in Hollister, California. Mark, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. That was a very nice introduction. I do appreciate that.
You bet. I'm really excited to chat with you today because, we kind of came about this podcast in a bittersweet note. You've been a Grow Pro client for a few months and, I've seen some really great success, so much that you now have a waiting list for your school and kind of need to pump the brakes on the marketing, right? And it's always bittersweet when that happens because it means, we did our, end of the bargain. So tell our listeners a little bit about your school. How long have you been in business? What styles do you teach? And, what's that active count at?
Well, I opened my school back in August 2006. I opened it like a month before I got married. So it was a pretty busy time. So celebrating 17 years here of both my marriage and my business coming up. So
congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I originally was part of a martial arts organization when I first opened, which I left in 2014. And I had to essentially rebrand and rebuild my school when I did that. And we've been very fortunate in our area to become, I feel, the martial arts school that people think about when they think about martial arts in Hollister.
Okay. And what's your predominant target market? Do you have a, main focused on adults? Is it predominantly kids? Is it a mixture of both?
We do have a mixture of both, but it's predominantly children. Yes. Our children is about 95% of our enrollment.
Okay. And do you have a specific style of martial arts that you guys teach?
Yes. Mixed martial arts system. Originally it was a mix of Taekwondo and kickboxing. Right now it's a mix of Jeet Kune Do, FMA, Taekwondo, kickboxing. Those are our primary styles. And I mix in a little bit of Kata Kembo here and there, a little bit of BJJ here and there, just to give our students a good, well-rounded system. So, and as a BJJ stylist yourself, you understand the importance of groundwork. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Very cool. Well, thanks so much for sharing. And man, starting a marriage and starting a business, those are two huge things. So congratulations that both of them are still intact.
Thank you.
And, we were talking a little bit right before this. I'm in Florida, you're in California. And I think everybody knows that went through COVID. Those two states differed in very many ways. The experience that we had with our students and our school, much different than you had. So how are you guys affected by COVID? And, really, what was your game plan to get through it and still be here and thriving?
Yeah, I'm grateful and fortunate to have been able to do what we did. So I'm not sure how things were in your area regarding COVID, but with us, we shut down in March, of course, and we reopened in June. Well, during those initial 3 months, like everybody else, we didn't know what we're going to do. So I got online, started seeing what my friends with schools were doing. And the first thing we did was we just started doing recorded classes. So my daughter, who is now 11, and I would go to the studio and we'd record a class for all of our members, just showing some drills so they could do at home. But then our dear friend Melody Johnson, as a SKILLZ school, she and her team put together a full virtual academy for the schools to do. So that's what I followed. And I'm so grateful to her for what she did, because they constantly gave us content to work with on how to run a virtual school. So we immediately started doing Zoom classes. And when we reopened in June, we had lost about 25 or 30 people. So we still had a decent amount of people still training. So when we opened, we opened for like a month, and then we had to shut down again because it was back and forth out here in California. And then we had different tiers. Are you familiar with the different tiers that were going on in different states? Red tier, purple tier, green tier, and so forth.
We didn't have that in Florida. So, our listeners are all over the world. So why don't you kind of explain what that is?
So each tier had specific guidelines that gyms and martial arts schools had to follow. So when we were in purple tier, we only had a certain amount of people that could be in the academy at a time. When we were in red tier, we couldn't be indoors at all. So we had to teach outside. And I was very fortunate because the building I'm in is in an industrial area. And our landlords, who have just been absolutely amazing, said, hey, the building at the end is not being used. Use the parking lot in that end to teach out there for as long as you need. So we did that for 6 months. So in the cold, we set up floodlights. Students came out and people trained in the bitter cold, and then people continued enrolling at a rapid pace, which was something that I didn't expect, but was so grateful for. And again, going through the summer months, we set up sprinkler systems outside so people can train in the heat. During the cold weather, we bundled up and we just persevered and got through everything and continued to grow at the same time.
At what point were you guys able to, kind of go back to normalcy, quote unquote, and start running those classes back indoors and not having to wear masks and things like that?
Yeah. That is such a blur, but I think after about 6 months.
It was, right?
Yeah, after about 6 months, we got the go ahead to go back indoors. I can't remember what month that is. Like I said, it was just it's just trying to survive, and just doing whatever we can to pivot and do so. And I found that the schools that did that were the ones that persevered. And unfortunately, many schools didn't do that. And I was very sad for them.
For sure.
But for us, we just never, ever, I refused to stop. I just refused. And I had so many parents telling us, we're so grateful that we have something for our kids to do outside the house and not be cooped up. And you guys have kept on going. And, we followed every rule in the book. We didn't have one COVID breakout, not one. We were so fortunate. When we got back indoors, we had doubled our enrollment that we had ever had in Hollister. Thanks to just perseverance, never quitting, never giving up. So
100%. Yeah. While not everybody has a success story in the martial arts industry like you did, I do feel as an industry, many school owners stepped up to the plate trying to figure out what they could do to make this work. My school's located right next to a dance studio, and I knew the owner, and we were passing each other one day, and this is when everything was shut down. And I said, how are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? And she's like, we're not doing anything. And it just and at that point, we had started Zoom classes before we even shut down because we saw the attendance just completely take a nosedive. So we wanted to be proactive about it. And, it's crazy that there were other sports out there that didn't pivot the way that we did. And very similar to you, we heard parents saying, oh my God, thank you so much for this, because my child has an outlet, and all of the other extracurricular activities that they were doing, they didn't pivot the same way that you did. So, kudos to you. Let's, shift gears. I want to talk about this 95% of your student base being children. Talk to me about the programs that you offer at your martial arts school for your kids. What do those look like?
So so as I mentioned before, we're a SKILLZ school. So we have their different age groups, ages 3 and 4, ages 5 and 6, and then I have ages 7 through 11, and then we have our 12 and above, our teens and adults. And I was just going to say, in Hollister, we've never had a large adult program, but it's predominantly children, which is fine. I mean, I love working with children. I love teaching kids. Generally, when we get to a certain number of students, to service our members as best we can, I cap the number. So our 3 and 4-year-old program is just bursting at the seams. I don't have too many kids in class. I generally try to cap it by 8 per class. Ages 5 and 6, bursting also. We have more kids in class at that point, but once we hit about 30 kids, I go ahead and just cap it there too. Ages 7 to 11 stay very, very steady also, steady enrollments there. But 12 and above, we have about 20, 25 students overall, which is a good size for that program because it's our last class of the day. And it works out pretty good that way.
Yeah, that 3 and 4-year-old class, we run them as well. We're pretty much the only school in Tampa that will take them at 3. There are some schools that, will have like a 4 to 6-year-old class, but we follow the 3 and 4-year-olds. And I sometimes joke that it's kind of like herding cats into a pool.
Yes.
So having those smaller numbers is, definitely important. What would you say is your unique selling position, being a SKILLZ school? Your email signature says, child development specialist. What makes your programs unique at Enterprise?
Because we teach the children based on their stages of development. And as well as I do that when we came up with the martial arts, there was one curriculum for the entire school with a watered down version for the kids. But that's like trying to teach TK kids second grade material. They have to have the basic foundations of it. 3 and 4-year-old, they're just learning how to follow commands and instructions. We can't be having them do jump side kicks across the room just because we see that on TV. So when I tell parents, I pre-frame them, let them understand they're learning, again, 3 and 4-year-olds, they're learning how to follow basic commands and instructions. They're learning just how to bend their knee on the kick. They're not going to be standing at attention for 1 minute at a time because that's unrealistic. So when we start to pre-frame parents and give them expectations that are realistic versus what they think martial arts is, it gives us the advantage and the edge because now we're the educators on so much more than just punching and kicking. We specialize in child development, and this is the first stage of it. And then we do the same for 5 and 6-year-olds and 7 through 11. We explain the stages of where they're at and what, as parents, they should expect and what we're going to improve upon.
I love it. Great response. And, there aren't many schools out there that are breaking up the age groups as much of that. Typically, you might see 2, different age groups like 3 to 6 and then 7 and up. And, it never really made sense in my head. I have a 3-year-old. We call him a 3-anger because he's a 3-year-old going on to a teenager.
Sure,
but even a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, a 5-year-old is in kindergarten, right? And a 3-year-old is maybe in a VPK program. They're just kind of like on 2 completely different planets. So we found separating those age groups makes it not only better for the kids, but it makes it easier for the instructors as well.
Exactly. Yes. And it's easy for parents to forget what it was like at that age. So the expectations that they have are sometimes unrealistic. So as long as we can educate them and let them know and remind them what it's like to be a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, then they would say, I've seen parents go, that does make sense. Like something
light bulb goes off.
Yeah, light bulb goes off. And that's a really important thing for us to do as child educators. I don't call myself a karate teacher or my staff, child development specialists. And that's what I feel truly separates us from any school in my area.
I love it. Great share. Thanks so much for breaking that down with the different programs you have. So one of the number one questions that you see in the martial arts Facebook groups are school owners asking about offers. What offer do you do? And, I think there is an argument for any offer that works for any particular school owner. So what's the offer that you typically push to, get prospects in the door?
Currently, it's just a free first lesson. Okay. I have them come in, it's a one-on-one lesson. That's what I advertise it as. One-on-one lesson. That's it. They don't pay anything for that lesson. They come in, they do their intro lesson, and they like it, they enroll. For the 3 and 4-year-olds, I do a 2-parter. For the 3 and 4-year-olds, I do what's called an evaluation lesson. And I make that different from an intro lesson because I tell the parents, I say, hey, this is just to make sure that Johnny or Susie can follow basic commands and instructions. If that works, great. We'll have them do a full class. Because we have seen kids at that age do a great intro lesson, but they go into class and it's a different vibe. So I will not enroll someone unless they can do the same thing they did on the class lesson that they did during the evaluation. But
Yes.
one-on-one lesson, that's what we did. During the COVID time, I would do 6 weeks for 149. So they'd come in, they'd enroll, they would get their lessons, they get all their gear for that cost. So that was a pretty good deal that worked as well. I might revisit that in the future, but for right now, the free one-on-one lesson has been working fantastic.
Yeah, we do something very similar. There's just nothing that can really build better rapport between the child, between the parent, than the one-on-one intro lesson. And we had found very similar. We do an evaluation to make sure that they are ready for the group class. And then they would sign up. Oftentimes, those parents would choose to do the paid in full. We have a paid in full option. And then it felt like a completely different child was just put in the group class. So we do something similar. If they pass that introductory lesson, that evaluation, we actually put them on a 2-week trial just to see how they're going to react being in the group setting. Because like you said, very often, they can pass with flying colors in a one-on-one setting, but then you put them in the group setting and, all the aspects of not just the physical and intellectual, which you guys talked a lot about in SKILLZ, but it's that social and emotional aspect. That environment is different when they are in a group lesson versus the one-on-one.
Very much so. Yes.
Very cool. So that's the offer. What type of marketing efforts do you do at Enterprise?
Well, obviously Facebook is the biggest thing. And then we also have a great referral program, and our parents know about it. It says basically you refer a friend, and they enroll, I give you $50 cash. I hand them a $50 bill. And obviously they just love that and appreciate that. And then of course, various events like a white belt buddy bash. That's become part of our quarterly marketing, where we have the white belts invite 2 to 3 of their best friends to come to a hour and a half. Basically, it's a birthday party type structure. Come in, they play games, but they break boards. Cool. Then afterwards they have pizza, and then afterwards we hand out an invite to all the prospects to say, come back on Monday to this time. We'll award you your white belt. I'll brief the parents and say, hey, if you enroll that day, there's a special offer. So things of that nature. Constantly doing events to bring in those friends is a huge win for us.
I love that white belt buddy bash. I think a lot of schools will implement like a buddy day where you can bring them to class, or even a buddy week, but you guys are doing something completely separate outside of the classes. And I love how you said it's, kind of like a birthday event where you're going to play games, we're going to do food. And there's something about breaking boards. I'm a BJJ girl, but we break boards in my school because it's not about the board. It's about the courage that it takes to overcome the fear of breaking the board. So we're big fans of that as well. And you said you're doing that quarterly. Is that how often you're doing those?
Yes.
Very
That's a good
cool.
amount of time in between that we get a new influx of white belts. So I usually, now that's just not just our brand new white belts, but the second rank, which we call white advanced belt, also bring friends. So that gives a good crowd, and they're still in that excitement phase to bring their friends in both of those belts. So we're looking forward to hosting our next one next month. So we're pretty happy about that.
That's awesome. Why don't we shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about your team? Most businesses, it takes a group effort to hit a certain level of success. So what does the team look like at Enterprise?
So we have 2 full-time instructors and 2 part-time instructors. One of my instructors has been with me since 2006, one of my first students.
Wow, that's so
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty great to have him there. Another one of my instructors is a secondary black belt, been with me for several years, and another one's a black belt candidate, testing for his black belt later on this year. And then my assistant head instructor is actually a red belt in our system, and also an academy parent. And rank isn't something that I look at as far as teachers. It's about passion. And I hired this person about 4 years ago when they were still roughly a beginner, just to help out the classes. and they've turned into an outstanding instructor, better than I was at Red Belt, that's for sure. And they've just excelled in their teaching. So our team, they commit to making the academy a better place because they love the academy. It's their second home. So they do all they can to make things as great for everybody. And we have staff meetings that walk out pumped up because they give me ideas and back and forth. We're a team. I don't say it'll be this way. I say, what do you guys think? What do you think will work? And they give me their ideas and we just go back and forth and ping pong. And I think that's important because it gives them opportunity to have a hand in the school and say that they're not just an employee, but they're part of the growth also in more ways than just being on the mat.
Absolutely. So you've got an awesome instructor team. What are some of the roles that you play in the school?
I wear every hat. And I've been trying to step back a bit from that. I just hired a manager.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, yes. And what's great is the manager is also our kids' nanny. So we already knew she was outstanding. She has a background though in management. So she was just a key factor. So for me, I have been on the mat a lot more. And then just right now I'm delegating things to our manager that I normally do.
Okay.
And I'm trying to kind of step away a little bit more and kind of let the team run the school. I know that a lot of people say the ideal thing for a school owner to do is to just kind of step away and let the team run the school. I like to get my feet wet every day and be in the thick of things. And it's what I enjoy. I love being at work. It's who I am. It's what I do. I have to be there in some capacity, whether it be on the mat, whether it be behind the front desk. I have to do that, but
Your purpose. Yeah.
Yes. I didn't open a school just to be just to be at home all the time. Yes. I do believe in balance. I believe that immensely, but at the same time, I want to be there full time and just be with everybody and make those connections. And that's what I do these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I, one of my favorite parts of being an entrepreneur is, hopefully, being able to get to the point where you just get to choose if you want to do it, right? It's right. Freedom to, like, I have freedom to do this, not freedom from, like, I'm trying to, get away from it.
Yes.
So 17 years in the industry, it's a long time. And I know you started in an organization and then got out of the organization. If you were to start all over again, what's one thing that you maybe might have done differently?
Well, I would have started on my own. That's the first thing. And I would have actually seeked out people like Melody, for example, to see what I could do different from everybody else in town. When I opened, there was, I think, 2 other schools in town that were doing similar things to what I was, but I felt at the time that I still had more to offer because I was part of this organization. But realistically, it wasn't too much different. The school that was in town at the time and we had the same roots. So even though I thought I was superior, I don't think I really was necessarily as far as what I had to offer. So I would have reached out and seeked out people and see what they were doing different in their areas and kind of pulled from that and based my school a little bit from what I learned there.
Very cool. And, what do you say to the school owners that might be trying to take their school to the next level? What, piece of advice do you have for them?
Seek out coaches that can help you. Never think that you have all the answers, no matter what your experience is. And listen to the industry all around you. For a very long time, I had a hard time reaching out to coaches because we have great coaches and we have not so great coaches. And I think that once I started to listen more and see who was truly out there that cared about what they did, those are the ones I followed and listened to and became friends with. You are one example of that, by the way. So
thank you.
Yes, yeah. I was reading it. Yeah, I read about you in all the publications, and I was happy to join GrowCo because I didn't really know much about you at the time, but Melody knew you and other people talked about you. John Geiston, John Geiston out of Springfield, yeah, a good friend of mine. They said had nothing but great things to say about you. So when I hear that, those are the people I want to connect with.
For sure. John actually opened a school here in Tampa. So
Yes.
it's about 5 miles away from my school. But Tampa is such a saturated market that 5
Sure.
miles is, plenty. And he's an awesome guy. And I think, you're just so right. There are so many coaches and consultants out there, and there's many different ways to skin a cat. There's many different ways to be successful. And I think making sure that your values are aligned is such an important aspect of finding that coach and mentor, which is exactly what you said. So any additional nuggets or wisdom or insight that you'd like to share before we wrap up here today, Mark?
Yeah, I just want to tell all the school owners out there, just like I previously said, always keep your mind open and always look for things that are going to set you apart from any other school in town and dive into it, because you want to be able to say what it is with clarity and be very concise, as opposed to, well, we have good service. Well, how? Every school is going to say that. Or, yes, I work with kids really well. Well, how do you work with kids really well? What do you do that makes you special other than just teach them discipline and respect?
Right? Confidence, discipline, and respect. That's what we do. You and every other martial arts school out there.
Exactly. So if you can explain what makes you different in detail really quickly, that's going to make you be the one that sets you apart from everybody else.
I love it. Great advice. Great takeaway. Mark, congratulations on your success. Congratulations to the success of your team and your students. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was an honor.